Tennessee Life is sponsored by
Mid-South Sewing and Fabric has what you need for your creative adventure. If it's sewing, embroidery, or vinyl projects you need for a home business, Etsy, Pinterest, and your family, we have it. Mid-South Sewing sells Brothers Sewing and Embroidery machines and the latest scan and cut crafting machine. Mid-South Sewing and Fabric in the Gallery Shopping Center.
Tennessee Life is also brought to you by The Flower Pot. For over 100 years, offering flowers and same-day delivery with 2 convenient Knoxville locations. KnoxvilleFlowerPot.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Coming up on this edition of Tennessee Life, we go from the dirt to the kitchen with gardening expert and author John Tullock, and make some authentic Appalachian recipes from his cookbook.
I wanted to counter the notion that Appalachia is a place of backwardness and that the culture doesn't move, and so I've taken trouble in the book to talk about a lot of the modern twists and turns that we have here. I say we have pho, but we also have sweet tea. We have sushi, but we still eat cornbread. There's a past and a present here that I think people need to know about.
One Tennessee man has dedicated his life to preserving the past. This master gardener is saving seeds for future generations.
I won't be around to see what comes in the future years, but it's a good feeling now to know that I've preserved these. And I say it myself, I'm talking about all of us as seed savers. As long as I'm living, I want to continue on looking for and preserving all that I can find. As long as there's something out there to be found, my job isn't done.
And a Knoxville elementary school is growing a garden and serving the community at the same time.
I don't think any of these kids would have eaten raw sugar snap peas until it was something exciting that they found themselves. So I think there is something about that sense of agency of discovery that makes something a little more appealing to just try it. And once you just start to try things, once you're in the habit of trying new things, I mean, the possibilities are endless, you know.
Those stories next on Tennessee Life.
Walk around. Right here. Come on, over here.
Thanks for joining us for Tennessee Life. I'm Vicki Lawson. In this episode, we head into the garden. First, we meet up with gardener and author John Tullock as he picks produce and whips up a meal with ancient roots from his book, Appalachian Cooking.
Appalachian cuisine is first and foremost something from the land, making do with what we have here at hand at any given point in time. We have, of course, the old saying around here, you know, use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. It also reflects a very strong tradition of frugality, maybe, for lack of a better term. Don't waste anything. Prepare in the summer for the hard times that are going to be around in the fall. Appalachian food doesn't really rely on presentation on the plate. It's more about the flavor that's in the pan. I'm John Tullock. I am retired. I'm a gardening expert, I guess you can say, but primarily I'm a writer. I've written about 20 books over the last 30 or 40 years, and I teach gardening classes here at the University of Tennessee. Well, this current book is Appalachian Cooking, and the goal was really twofold. One was to share some of the recipes that I learned about growing up and that people still treasure as traditional recipes. And also I wanted to counter the notion that Appalachia is a place of backwardness and that the culture doesn't move, and so I've taken trouble in the book to talk about a lot of the modern twists and turns that we have here. I say we have pho, but we also have sweet tea. We have sushi, but we still eat cornbread. There's a past and a present here that I think people need to know about. I grew up in Greenville, Tennessee on a farm. My maternal grandparents ran the farm. There's 70 acres or so. I can't remember how young I was when I first started helping the garden. My grandparents always had about an acre of vegetables, several acres of corn, so it was a family farm. My grandmother was an excellent cook. My mother was an excellent cook. And I'd help them do everything from helping my grandfather when we killed hogs in February, all the way to helping my grandmother break beans and can tomatoes and things like that in the summer. We didn't think it was anything special. It was just the way you lived your life. As I got older, I came to the University of Tennessee eventually and started cooking for myself originally, of course, and then started cooking for friends. The gardening and the cooking all kind of came together. You kind of get tired of peanut butter and crackers after a while, so I decided I better learn how to do some cooking. Right now we're at the kitchen garden at the University of Tennessee Gardens. The University of Tennessee Gardens is the official botanical garden of the state of Tennessee. So everything we have around us here that you see that is painted purple is some way an edible plant. So we have herbs, we have edible flowers, and things that people are more familiar with like cabbage and kale and okra and so on here in the kitchen garden. We're also surrounded by things like blackberries and fig trees. In doing the research for this Appalachian cookbook, I learned a lot about how food really ties us to our history, and not only our family history, but also to the history of the country. A lot of the food that we eat came from the people we encountered when our European ancestors first came over here in the 17th century. So it gives me not only a sense of connection back to my grandparents and my family members, but also to the history that we're so richly endowed with here in the East Tennessee region. If I had to choose one food crop that connects everything together about East Tennessee cooking and the South in general, it would have to be corn. They used to call East Tennessee the land of hogs and hominy, and of course you can't have hogs without the corn either. Tennessee is actually, in my opinion, probably one of the best places in North America to be a gardener because we have a very mild climate, so it's cold enough in the winter to give a lot of things the right dormancy, but it's warm enough in the summer that we can grow all of those things like tomatoes and okra and peppers that like hot weather. Beans and corn, of course, are the two primary ingredients in this dish we're going to make, succotash. As long as you have fresh corn, the other vegetables can be varied. So what we're going to do, we're going to use the carrots and the green onions in the succotash, and we're going to thicken the sauce with some of the okra, and we're going to decorate it with edible flowers. Succotash is actually an ancient dish. The name comes from the Narragansett, that would be New England Indians. And over the years, since it was introduced to the colonists, over the intervening period of time, it's really evolved. Most of the time, if you see succotash, it will be corn and lima beans, as at least those would be the two major components. But chances are the Narragansetts never heard of a lima bean. They won't grow up in New England anyway. And so any kind of bean has become a thing to include in succotash. And then we include other things like herbs and onions and carrots and so forth to boost the flavor. The cycle of being able to see seeds germinate in the spring and in the summer turn that into something delicious, maybe even preserve it for the winter use, that's a very satisfying way for me to continue to be connected to the cycle of life. I just think it's cool when people go, wow, that, came from seed and here we got cucumbers 3 months later. The wow factor is what I hope they take away, because if you're passionate about something, you're going to keep at it, and you'll get to be a better and better gardener as the seasons go by.
Later on Tennessee Life, these kids take pride in growing, and eating from their school garden. But next, why did this East Tennessee man make it his life's mission to track down and preserve seeds from past generations?
Ever wonder why the tomato you eat today just doesn't taste like the one your grandparents put on the plate? It's all about the seeds. Blackberry Farm Master Gardener John Coykendall has made it his mission to seek out lost varieties to make sure future generations have plenty of tasty produce. We start our chat by learning more about the science of seed saving.
Seed saving is really a very easy process. It's been done for 10,000 years by our ancestors with the beginning of agriculture. Seed saving is literally seed to seed. If I take one of these beans, put it in the ground, that sprouts and grows, makes a plant, produces pods. Now the ones that I'm going to save for seed, I leave on the plant. We take those and shell them out, and I'll dry them for a couple of more weeks. And today we have the advantage of having freezers, so we can store these for long-term storage. It's an exact science, as simple as it is. The three main enemies of seeds are heat, light, and moisture. You'd never dry seeds out in the sunlight, wouldn't leave them in a hot room, wouldn't store them in a window, wouldn't put them in a jar and put them in direct sunlight, wouldn't put them in a damp basement. We want a cool, dark, dry location.
How did you get into farming? It sounds like there's a story in there.
How I got into farming is really a difficult question because there's no farming in the family background. And yet it's like I was raised out of generations of dirt farmers. It's in the DNA. It's just always been a part of it since I was small and wanted to have gardens. The people I learned from in my early years were all born in the 1880s on up to early 1900. So I was gleaning that old knowledge, the old ways of farming. But as far as the how, it's very difficult to answer. It's always been in there, so to speak.
Tell us about where and how you grew up.
A lot of guests at Blackberry will ask me, they will say, I bet you were born on a farm right here in the county. And I say, it would make a lot more romantic story if I told you I was born in a board and batten shack on the side of a mountain and my father had me plowing mules when I was 10 years old. But it would be a totally fabricated story. I grew up in an old section of town, Sequoia Hills. My father was a banker, mother was a school teacher, and my grandfather, John Jennings Jr., was a congressman from Tennessee.
Tell us about your love of farming and how you weave that together with your life as an artist.
I've never separated the two. To me, they go hand in hand. If you look at these journals that I have, the pages are filled with drawings, sketches, notes, stories, reflections, sometimes bits of farming information. The two have always, as I say, gone hand in hand. Beautiful scenery, the farmland, the ways of farming, the old people that farmed the land, all of it goes together to make one piece of artwork.
To you, why is it so important that we remember the history and remember the people as well as the seeds and preserving those?
To me, going back to the art part of it, we go in the museum and we can see Rembrandts and Vermeers and all of these different paintings from antiquity. And to me, it's the same thing with those seeds. They're the seeds, the history, the heritage, the way of life, culinary arts of our ancestors. And above all, it's the flavor. For something to survive, there's got to be a reason to keep it. It has to have good flavor. If we have a vegetable that has no flavor, why in the world would you want to preserve it? Has to be something that's good to start with, and those old varieties were so wonderful.
Do you think a lot of our society today, by eating that food, as you described the tomato, they really don't know what a real tomato grown in a garden tastes like?
I'll tell you a good example of that. Up at Blackberry, we have August, which is garden month for us, and part of our program then is tomato tastings on Saturdays, and we'll have anywhere from 25 to 35 heirloom varieties. And that consists of three things: a large cutting board, good sharp knife, and some sea salt if you want it, so we can showcase the wonderful flavor of those old tomatoes. And I was amazed that there would be a number of younger people that wouldn't eat tomatoes, didn't like them. And I couldn't understand how in the world anybody could not like a real wonderful tomato. Then it finally dawned on me, a lot of those people have never tasted a real tomato. Now imagine if both of us had only tasted those styrofoam tomatoes. Well, we wouldn't want one either. And we've had a number of cases where they've tasted the real things. I remember we had one young man that wouldn't eat any, and finally his mother talked him into it. You're going to eat some of these. We're going to stand here till you do. He tasted a couple of those different old varieties, and good gosh, he cleaned off the whole board by himself. Had to start over.
Well, you know that you're the master gardener at Blackberry Farms. Is that the only place that you cultivate?
I will do some on my farm east of Knoxville, and I'll grow things for seed production. In other words, they're things, rare varieties, that I'm growing out for preservation. So I grow them literally from seed to seed, from the time the seed goes in the ground until it's mature and dried and ready to be harvested and saved for future plantings.
Have you identified something that is local in our area that you were so proud to be able to regenerate the seeds?
A great number of the old Appalachian beans.
What were some of the varieties of those?
One of the most interesting ones is one called greasy beans. It's a class called greasy beans. Now, your regular bean has that minute fuzz on it, sort of velvet-like feeling. If you take a regular pod, you can feel that. A little bit rougher surface, duller color. But the greasy beans have a slick surface. They look like they've been dipped in olive oil or shined up with oil. And when they're hanging on the vines, they're shiny. Beans of that type that come from around our region. I love growing those and sending the seed around to different people.
When you get a seed that is basically extinct or very hard to find, you cultivate that, and your mission is to get the seeds where you can replenish them and it becomes a part of the seed exchange. Very
often somebody sends you seed that may be in limited quantity or really old and have low germination rates. They sent one pea that had only had 8 seeds of it. 5 of those seeds just mashed in my hand. They just turned to powder. No viability at all. I was able to germinate two of those seeds. And I remember having those plants is just like having a baby. You know, you have a baby, you've got to nurse that, you've got to bring it along. And that's the way it was with these. I put them by the wood-burning stove at night, and in the daytime I'd take it out and put it on a rock so they could toughen up and grow up. They had these 2 plants in a pot. And as they would grow, they got up about this high, they would get a little bit tougher. I had to wait till they were tough enough to leave home, so to speak. And then I planted those near the garden shed at Blackberry. And from those 2 seeds, I was able to get, I think it was 805 seeds out of that. So that took that off the endangered list.
Why do you do all this?
To me, it's for the future, for future generations. I want to be able to pass these things on. I won't be around to see what comes in the future years, but it's a good feeling now to know that I've preserved these. And I say it myself, I'm talking about all of us as seed savers, all of the members that are doing that, and people all over the country and all over the world who are doing the same things and saving these treasures to be passed on. As long as I'm living, I want to continue on looking for and preserving all that I can find. As long as there's something out there to be found, my job isn't done.
Sometimes a garden grows a lot more than produce. At Pond Gap Elementary in Knoxville, a community garden provides students and families with food and after-school programs.
It is really an oasis for not only people, but all kinds of birds and critters that call this garden home now that it's here. So we're trying to grow fruit trees, right? It's an opportunity to have a one-on-one interaction with somebody, which to me is the most valuable thing I could do with my time with these kids. To have a one-on-one, real conversation and interaction with them. They get a lot out of that, and I get a lot out of that too. I'm Andrew Linville. I am the garden manager for Pond Gap Elementary School. I work with the University of Tennessee's University Assisted Community Schools. I take care of the plants, all the maintenance, the planting. I work with volunteers and coordinate volunteer opportunities for people. I work with children and pretty much anybody that comes through the garden. This garden is the largest school garden in the county. It's the largest food forest in East Tennessee up until the plateau, and it is the only food forest in this area on public land, which is pretty significant. A polyculture food forest is a functioning ecosystem with both edible and non-edible plants. One way that I like to articulate it is that human integration versus human domination. As humans, we are not trying to dominate this landscape. We are integrating our needs into what the land also wants to be. So as the gardener, we serve as a liaison between what the land wants and what the humans need. And that's a very important role. With this style of gardening, you're constantly regenerating the land that you're working, as opposed to just taking and taking from it. This garden began as an AmeriCorps Vista project in 2013, and it has undergone several incarnations over the last several years, and it began to address some just very real needs of the children. The community school wants to address the food, clothing, shelter, just basic needs of the whole child. And so food access was something that was obviously a challenge to tackle in this neighborhood. So at AmeriCorps Vista started a garden, and since then it has developed into a perennial food forest landscape with the idea of lower maintenance and lower cost over time was a really big influence in the food forest model. So part of this initiative is to slowly reforest with edible plants and serve as kind of an educational hub for people to learn how to do this, that it can be done, and that it can be done in our climate.
I learned one thing, that the non-curricular needs of children are as equally important as the academic issues that they bring to school. Food, shelter, clothing. So what we did was we said, all right, when do we want these hours to be? I said 3 to 8. Now why 3 to 8? That's when kids commit crime or they are the victims of crime. So even if we were doing nothing here at this school, we're keeping them off the street and we're keeping them healthy and we're keeping them where they are learning stuff. I'm director of the University Assisted Community Schools program, which brings in a myriad of services from UT, such as education, social work, sociology, engineering, but also with agencies in the community to provide the services in a one-stop shop that otherwise they wouldn't get. Now, what makes a community school unique is that it depends on the neighborhood. What works in one school does not work in another. So if you're looking at replication, we're not doing it. We are exportable, we're not replicable. That's difficult. So you have to listen to the community, the school people, the teachers. It's all about communication. I wanted everything to be school-based so that they associate this school building with something good happening for them. We're really trying to make this a community, a hub. If you've got a problem, you come here, and we have solved a lot of problems here, from jobs to landlord-tenant issues to whatever. And the principal will tell you, when we first started, they were probably averaging 5 calls a day complaining. They may get 1 a month because we handle it.
We're pioneering kind of a new crossover between, we're at a school, it's a school during the day, after the day it's more of a community center. So this is also a very public space. We're not fenced in. People have access to this land the same way they have access to the playground. It's very self-directed exploration, kind of a wander and learn environment. You're free to pick whatever you want. So we get the opportunity to do a lot of side-by-side research comparisons and, we wonder, will this work better? Will this work better? And we have the freedom to take the time to explore that and still being able to provide what the goal is, which is a space for the community to learn.
It's a radish.
We've already produced over 100 pounds of food this growing season, so that's basically since February. They love harvesting, that's their favorite thing to do. They love watering. They love planting seeds. And the way that we found really works well for both the kids and the seeds is by making seed balls, which is just a combination of compost, clay, and seeds rolled into a ball. Seeds are a little less picky to germinate when they're just thrown out in that form. There's just a pure joy to that. I don't think any of these kids would have eaten raw sugar snap peas until it was something exciting that they found themselves. So I think there is something about that sense of agency, of discovery, that makes something a little more appealing to just try it. And once you just start to try things, once you're in the habit of trying new things, I mean, the possibilities are endless. It's just about respecting your environment, respecting the people and the plants and the animals around you. Respect is a main point that we make here, treating each other with respect. It takes a community of different things to make one whole. You each fill a role, and that's part of the community building comparison that we've been able to articulate to the kids. I hope that that sense of stewardship is carried with them as they move forward in life.
Follow me. There's no more water.
We hope you've been inspired to give gardening a try. I'm Vicki Lawson. See you on the next Tennessee Life.
Tennessee Life is sponsored by
Mid-South Sewing and Fabric has what you need for your creative adventure. If it's sewing, embroidery, or vinyl projects you need for a home business, Etsy, Pinterest, and your family, we have it. Mid-South Sewing sells Brothers Sewing and Embroidery machines and the latest scan and cut crafting machine. Mid-South Sewing and Fabric in the Gallery Shopping Center.
Tennessee Life is also brought to you by The Flower Pot. For over 100 years, offering flowers and same-day delivery with 2 convenient Knoxville locations. KnoxvilleFlowerPot.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you